The verb tenses in chapter 17 are rarer tenses. The first one occurs more often, but the others that are discussed are pretty much reserved for very literary, stylistic writing. You will come across them if you read a very formal piece, but also within written text they show up. And so when people cite the biblical text, they will be seen. These are tenses that you will need to go back to and review occasionally and look them up. I don't expect that they'll become a normal part of your regular verb vocabulary, but you do need to be aware of their existence. The future perfect is formed with the future of avoir or être, depending upon which the verb uses in the passé composé, plus the past participle. It refers to an action that will be completed at a future point in time. Les Égyptiens sauront que je suis le Seigneur lorsque j'aurai manifesté ma gloire de cette manière. The Egyptians will know, notice the future, that I am the Lord. Now, when will this happen? It will happen when something else has already occurred. When I will have manifested my glory in this manner. So we're thinking of the order of two events. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, but that will only occur when there is a action completed at a future point in time, which is the manifestation of the glory of the Lord. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I will have manifested my glory in this manner. Now, in English, we don't really use the future perfect much anymore, so we probably would just default to the present tense here. When I manifest my glory in this manner. French is being more exact. It's saying that this will be a completed action, which then gives way to the other action. The future and the future perfect can also express probability, but here context is key. Il n'est pas encore là, il aura manqué le dernier métro. He is not yet here. He will have missed the last train. That's a conjecture. It's a possible outcome based upon the information that we have. Context is indicating that it's a possible idea. The past subjunctive is an interesting tense. It's formed with the present subjunctive of avoir or être, depending upon which the verb uses in the passé composé, and the past participle. It occurs in situations where the subjunctive is used to show dependence, but it concerns a past event or a completed action. So there is a big contextual marker here that you need to use the subjunctive, and the referent is a past event. It is analogous to the passé composé of the indicative, because the passé composé of the indicative also refers to a past event or a completed action. But that is used to indicate if you will, an actuality, whereas the subjunctive is used to indicate a potentiality, a possibility, a dependent idea. So the meaning is oftentimes the same, the translation is oftentimes the same, but there is a linguistic contextual clue that the subjunctive should be used in this instance. And so it's often translated best by the simple past. Le maître était fort en colère et il envoya le serviteur aux travaux forcés en attendant qu'il ait payé toute sa dette. The master was strong in wrath, very mad, and he sent the servant to the forced labor while waiting until he paid all his debt. In this instance, the subjunctive is required because en attendant que does not indicate a definite time frame. It is a possible while waiting until such and such occurred. So therefore the subjunctive is required, but we're telling a story. We're referring to a past event. And so this is why the past subjunctive is used in this instance. The imperfect subjunctive is formed with the passé simple stem and these endings. Let's look at the verb porter, which means to wear or to carry. Je portasse, tu portasses, il allons porta, nous portassions, vous portassiez, il, elle portasse. The endings, as you can see, are quite notable. A-S-S-E, A-S-S-E-S, A with an accent circumflex, T, A-S-S-I-O-N-S, A-S-S-I-E-Z, A-S-S-E-N-T. The connecting vowel that connects these endings to the verb will change based upon the spelling of the infinitive. ER verbs will have an A connecting vowel, like the example that I just showed you. For example, peser, which means to weigh, would be je pesasse. IR verbs will use an I connecting vowel. Grandir, to grow, would be nous grandissions. And boire verbs have a U connecting vowel. Boire, to drink, becomes il bousse. But the important thing to recognize then are the other letters of the ending. You don't really have to identify that vowel. It's the other letters of the ending that are going to be most noticeable for you. Note also that the first and second person imperfect subjunctive of certain verbs will look like the imperfect. So context will be important to note. And then note that with some irregular verbs, the third person singular will look like the passé simple except for the accent. So that accent will be critical to note. Now here's what's important to note about the imperfect subjunctive. It is a literary formal tense because of its relationship to the passé simple. So you will see it only in literary formal writing, pretty rarely in academic prose, but it does occasionally occur. It occurs in constructions where you would expect the subjunctive. There's a contextual clue, a subordinating conjunction, something of that nature that points to the subjunctive, but it refers to past time but incomplete action, action that's ongoing or in process. It's analogous to the imperfect indicative then, and it's often best translated by the imperfect because English doesn't really make that distinction between the imperfect indicative and the imperfect subjunctive. Take a look at this example from Galatians chapter 2. Jacques, Céphas et Jean me donnèrent à moi et à Barnabas la main d'association afin que nous allassions, nous vers les païens et eux vers les circoncis. James, Cephas, and John gave to me and to Barnabas, the hand of association, the right hand of friendship, with the result that we were going, us to the Gentiles and them to the circumcised. The action's not done as far as Paul is describing it. It is something that is in process, and so therefore it is describing an ongoing idea in the past, but afin que requires the subjunctive. Therefore, the subjunctive, the imperfect of the subjunctive is required in this instance. Inversion with the imperfect subjunctive indicates a condition, even if or if only. This is a very formal style and quite rare. There is one example in the biblical text that's worthwhile to note. Puis il leur dit, gardez-vous avec soin de toute avarice, car la vie d'un homme ne dépend pas de ses biens, fût-il dans l'abondance. Then he said to them, guard yourself with care against all avarice, against all greed, because the life of a man does not depend on his goods, even if he is in abundance. To translate this, I've got to recognize that the inversion indicates even if, and then the meaning of the words would be translated, even if he is in abundance. The past perfect subjunctive is also a literary formal tense because of its relationship to the imperfect subjunctive, which is related to the passé simple. It occurs in constructions where you would expect the subjunctive, and it refers to past time and completed action. For example, le Fils de l'homme s'en va selon ce qui est écrit de lui, mais malheur à l'homme par qui le Fils de l'homme est livré, mieux vaudrait pour cet homme qu'il ne fût pas né. The Son of Man goes according to that which is written of him, but woe to the man by whom the Son of Man is delivered. It goes better for this man that he was not born. The past perfect of the subjunctive uses the imperfect subjunctive of the auxiliary verb and then the past participle of our verb. Here, we would translate it just like the past, the simple past. The hard part is really just recognizing what it is. The reason that the subjunctive is required here is because we're expressing an opinion. It would go better for this man that, and then I express my opinion. And so the subjunctive is required, but we're indicating a past completed action. He was not born. And so therefore, the two clues to recognize would be the imperfect of the subjunctive and the auxiliary verb, and then the subjunctive being required by the context. It does look similar to the past anterior in certain instances, so you do need to note which tense you have so as not to construe the meaning. In practical fact, it's pretty rare to occur, and so this is not a circumstance you're going to come across very regularly.